In this series, we address frequent topics that most managers and business leaders struggle with. We offer new perspectives and tips to help you test alternative behaviors or identify more productive paths to tackle your challenges.
Welcome to Conversations with Grooa. Today we are going to talk about the difficulty of giving feedback. I am Elena Di Girolamo and I'm here with Laura Lozza. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you. Hello, Elena, and hello, everybody else.
Laura, we see with many clients that feedback is really an important topic and also something they often struggle with. For example, I had the testimonial of Carlo. He has recently been promoted to a new function. He is a sales manager. Previously, with his team of reportees, very young salespeople, he was okay with giving feedback, but now he is writing, now I need to know how to give feedback, especially negative, because I have difficulty to do it with my senior people that report to me in this new job. How can we help, Carlo?
This is such a frequent comment about negative or positive, and I think that the problem is what we actually define as feedback, because true feedback actually is neither negative nor positive. Strictly speaking, feedback is just a factual observation related to something relevant for the business. Like, I noticed that you did or did not follow up with this customer after the first meeting. You notice something that might bring or not certain desired consequences to the business, and you wonder whether the person has maybe forgotten to do that follow-up, or maybe made a conscious decision not to follow up, and you want to offer a conversation about it, a learning conversation about it. That's the feedback, an observation. And so the person who receives the feedback can maybe thank you for the reminder, or I say, I'm still thinking about what to do next with this client, for example, and that's it. You're done. There's nothing more to do. You do not know her situation, and unless she wants to discuss it further with you, your job is done. She will decide how to use the feedback. Now, judgment is something completely different. Judgment is negative or positive. Like when we say it was wrong not to follow up, or it was right to follow up with this customer, it is an evaluation. A positive evaluation would sound like this is good, this is right, this is well done, correct answer. Or there is a negative evaluation when we say things like this is bad, this is wrong, badly done, incorrect, like it's cool, like when we are teaching. Like when you must clearly show right from wrong. This is the behavior of someone who knows better and has the responsibility for teaching the rules. What's wrong with that? Well, nothing in certain situations. And in fact, Carlo, you were just saying, Elena, that he says he had no problems in teaching the juniors, in giving them what he thinks is feedback, telling them what they did right and what mistakes they made. It was probably the way he was taught, and then it is probably the way it is accepted around him, and he feels comfortable with it. But then suddenly he has a different role. He has different people reporting to him. What has changed is now the seniority level of those reporting to him. They're not junior. They are where they are most likely because they know the basics. So they probably developed also their own style. They do not need anyone to teach them what is right and what is wrong. They know it. And they certainly do not need anyone to tell them good girl, or you did well, or bad boy, you did something wrong. They still might benefit from discussing their choice of behavior without a judgment, with the feedback, without patronizing, with an observation and a conversation that follows. And certainly not necessarily they want unsolicited advice. They might ask, but they might not want you to go and say, you should do this or that, because you're not them. You could say, if they ask, I would do it like this. How about you? That's a conversation that is worth having with senior people.
I see there is a big difference between teaching rules and giving feedback. But what we often see, many companies associate feedback to the performance review they do every 6 months or once a year. In fact, also Carlo mentions that he has to prepare the feedback for the performance review. And I understand he feels uncomfortable about judging the senior managers, but it seems like this is required by his function. So it can also be confusing. What else can we suggest to Carlo?
Yes, I agree. It can be confusing, although even in the traditional performance review process, there is space for having a more adult to adult type of conversation. We don't need to use it to prepare in advance and then tell them you've done right or you've done wrong. One important thing to remember is that the performance review typically is a necessary tool for administrative purposes, like for deciding salaries, benefits, and it is usually an evaluation of achievements, outputs, outcomes obtained in the past period. It's an evaluation of what happened and not the evaluation of the person. It is a useful opportunity to reflect upon, as I said earlier, the learning. So I usually recommend to make that very, very clear. We evaluate results and then we have the conversation about whether there was anything interesting that we would say, today I would do it differently. That is the learning. That is what is useful for the development. And we can give you. I can think of an example. Let's say that there was a delay in a certain area of the business, or there was a missed KPI because the responsible person shifted focus towards something else. So if we are in the position of I have to teach a lesson, I might, analyze the situation, see that the person has changed course and say, you're not good at holding focus. And my advice is in your development plan for the next year, you'll have to prove that you can stay focused on what is decided. Instead, if you say, I've noticed that you've changed focus, and that is why we didn't get to those results. What was the reason for your choice? For example, if you have a conversation about the learning, you might actually discover that the person might have seen that the market situation was changing and decided to make a risky but maybe actually quite smart adaptation because of the changed market conditions. And so actually maybe staying focused would have been in the long run something wrong. So there is no inability to stay focused. Actually, the person showed initiative and flexibility. Maybe not enough timely communication. Maybe if you find that out at the time of the performance appraisal, then that wasn't clear. So the learning might be, okay, next time I can discuss it, earlier rather than later. So it is much better to prepare for performance review with observations and questions to discuss so that you can help the person really learn and really develop. Otherwise, it's just, setting rules, and with senior people, it is of no use whatsoever.
Yes, asking is a much better way than judging if we aim to grow organization and to learn together. I guess feedback would be much more useful if we give it on the spot, so not only at the yearly performance appraisal, but just anytime we observe something and we have a different maybe view than our colleague. So one important thing is the words we use. We need to be curious and choose the right words to facilitate the conversation in a constructive way, especially if we are discussing behavior of others.
Absolutely. Feedback, you're right, Elena, is best when it is uh, given at the moment, on the spot, with the right language. It's not easy to have the right language. It's not easy to go away from the habit of saying, "Well done," or "Wrong, wrong, wrong." So it takes practice, and we tend to use. Any facilitated meetings with our clients, any team learning processes, to also practice a little bit, an exchange of feedback. It's highly recommended to try in a very well known environment, when you know that you're learning together, and then it becomes easier when you have to do it in practice.
Yes, indeed, especially because we have to remember giving feedback is being curious about the way of working of the other, being open, and also giving it as a gift, not expecting something back, because the responsibility is always by the receiver, what he wants or not want to do with what he received. So thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Elena.
If you have a question or a topic of interest, please email laura@grooa.com. Thanks for listening.